Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pits of Motorcast. This is Joe's Dave. Happy New Year to everybody. I got online special guest, Nitro funny car driver Paula Martin. How you doing, Paula?
I'm great. Happy New Year to you and everybody.
Yep, Happy New Year. So how was your New Year?
It was interesting. I went up snow skiing in northern Arizona, and they have some lighted runs. So I was up there snow skiing when it turned night. It was cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, Paula, you've been driving Nitro funny cars for years now. How did you get involved in drag racing?
It's kind of an interesting story. Unlike so many other people, I did not. I didn't even go to a drag race until I was in my mid-30s. I was involved in some other sports and had retired from those and was not looking for something to do. Had never been to a drag race before, so I went to a July 4th funny car extravaganza out at what was then Firebird Raceway, now is Gila River, and saw probably 8 to 10 Nitro funny cars there. It was Big Jump Dunn and Fireman's Quickie and Gary Densham and his pet, those guys, and thought it looked like it could be some fun to do. Shortly thereafter, Frank Hawley opened his school, and so I went down there to see if I did like it. Got in an alcohol funny car. That was the only type of car that the school had at that point, and really liked it. And that started everything. The addiction was set.
So, what year did you first start driving a funny car?
I purchased after Hawley School. I came back to Phoenix, and I think probably 86, 87. I bought a Monza and campaigned that with the California Injected Funny Car Association. It was not blown. It was on carbureted or injected. You could run either. And I had a little nitrous oxide on it. Ran that for a year, then moved up to top alcohol and ran it for about 6 months and converted that car over to fuel. And so my first, I think I got my fuel license in August of 88, eons ago. So. And I ran a match race in the Fall Nationals, and then started the next year in what was then called the Super Bowl of drag racing, and had a major incident, and it destroyed the car, and I got burned. And so I sat out for almost about a year and a half, I think, before I could get back in one. And it was not so much that medically I couldn't get back in, because I could. It was just it destroyed everything that we had in terms of race equipment. So it takes a while to replace all that stuff. Learned the hard way.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how many funny car teams have you driven for?
I had my own. When I came back after the accident, I employed Johnny West as a crew chief. He built my car, and Johnny had an accident in Englishtown the year before, and it was a bad one. He had scraped a wall, it knocked him out. He ended up going off the track and broke his arm, and so he wanted out of the seat for a while. So we struck a deal with him, and I think I campaigned all but 2 or 3 of the national events then in '91 and did a ton of match races. And I'd have to say it was the match races that taught me really a lot about driving more than the NHRA events. The NHRA events, I was dazzled by. I listened to other people talk about their experience in racing, and I just sort of walked up and said, "Hey, that looks like fun. I want to do it." And a couple of years later, I was in a field car, and so I was pretty dazzled by all of it. And at the same time, I didn't really have an appreciation, I don't think, for the business of it or funny cars. People kept asking me, "Don't you want to get into another car before you go into funnies?" Because they got a pretty bad reputation, especially then they did. I just was pretty clueless, to be honest with you. I didn't know I was supposed to do it. After I got burned, I realized it, but before that, it was like, oh, how hard can it be? I boat raced, I water ski raced, I did a lot of other kind of adventurous stuff, and it can't be harder than that. And in some ways it wasn't, and in other ways it proved to be formidable. So I guess in answer to your question, I ran with Johnny for a year. He decided he wanted to get back in the seat, and he had a sponsorship deal, and ran for the Chicago Trapper for a few months until their driver got back in the seat. So at that point, we made the decision that we needed to at least partner with somebody or buy our own deal again. And so we ended up partnering with Terry Joyce, who owned the Chicago Trapper. And that was the car I ran with most of the rest of the time.
And now you're driving for Jeff Jones?
For Tim Jones, uh-huh.
Tim Jones, yeah.
Yeah. Tim Jones and Beth Main, they bought one of Chuck Etchell's cars, and I think it was his last car, Clipper chassis with a Camaro body on it. And so he and I had been talking about it. We ran into each other on Facebook. I knew him when he was crewing on Cranbergers and Ostranders and some of those guys back in the day. And we both said, it'd be nice to race again. I wonder if we can do this. And he knew about the Funny Car Chaos guys, and I thought, that sounds fun. It sounds financially reasonable, as reasonable as fuel racing can get, which most of the time is not real reasonable, but it is one of the easiest associations to run in financially. And so we decided we'd try it and maybe pick up some match races. And we're shooting for the first race of this year, which is in April. So we're doing it for fun. We're doing it because we like racing, and we really like field cars. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, Chris Graves is really coming a long way with that Funny Car Chaos event.
Yeah. Oh, there's some really good drivers in that association, and I think it represents what it used to be before an NHRA, before it just became a big machine. The last year that I did it, and that was, as we were talking, that was in the late 90s. I spent $1 million. I ran $1 million through my checking account, business account. And now you're talking $3 to $5 million to go out there and run. And there's just not a lot of people around that want to sponsor a car with that kind of cash. And secondary to that is that there's not a lot of rich people who can afford to throw $3 or $5 million to a race car every year. So keeping that in mind, we feel like we can be competitive and have fun doing it. So we're off to the races.
Yeah, the good old days when you see like 30 funny cars in the staging lanes. That's where you see a Funny Car Chaos.
Oh yeah. Even when I first, I kind of started at the tail end of the really good days when there were 50 cars that would show up, and even in our day it was like you'd have 27, 28 cars at most national events. Vying for 16 spots, and at IHRA races, it was even more than that. So, it was a competitive time, and it was a mano kind of racing rather than the team racing that you see now. I call it team racing. I don't know what else you can call it, because when you have three cars on one team in one class, you're going, let me see how I could beat that with a one car deal. And sometimes you get lucky. Wilkerson has done a tremendous job, I thought, this year in Funny Car trying to do that. But it's very different. Whereas this, it's more of a it's back to the roots of the sport. I think it feels like it anyway.
Yeah, like you said, NHRA is all about sponsors nowadays. You get all the cars got the big sponsor names on them, not like the old days where all the cars you can put your own name on there. What do you want to put on there? Yeah. And there was a richness to that kind of racing that you don't have now. It's kind of like the interviews at the end of the track. You'd have guys going at each other. It was pretty animated. Even Force was a bit more animated, if that's possible to be. I mean, it was kind of, it was outside the box.
but it was fun. You know, it was more real. I think now it's, and I understand why it is the way it is. I mean, I think we all do. But it's pretty boxed, and everybody's pretty sedate, and everybody's pretty friendly with each other. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That doesn't mean you have to not be friendly with each other if you're going to compete, but it just had a dimension that you don't see now, I think.
And a lot of the funny cars out there in the NHRA now, they all look the same pretty much. They don't have the old style bodies like in the back in the old days.
Yeah. Well, you know, you could, because it was a lot about the tuning and a lot about the driver. And now it's more about the science. And there was a science. I don't mean that anytime you deal with nitromethane, it's a science. But there was a simplicity to it. You come back, you read the plugs. You know, we started out with a computer from Ray Alley, but we were still reading the plugs because it would tell you a lot about what was going on with the car. And I doubt that they even look at the plugs. I don't know. They may still, some of them. But there was a simplicity to it that really spoke to the drivers were building the engines, the drivers were working on the cars. It was not, it was just a whole different world, it seems like. And I like it. You know, I certainly appreciate the speeds that they're going and, you know, all the razzmatazz that goes into it today. I mean, you can't deny that. It's spectacular. But I think you lose something. I think something got lost along the way on that. And, you know, it seems that more than just a few of us think that way. I think, you know, it shows up in the spectator numbers. And I think that's the reason why associations like the Chaos guys are going to do well, because it's back to earth again with, you know, you get the fire and the flames and, you know, some interesting stuff going on with it. I like to think so anyway. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I like the concept how you can bring whatever you got, as long as it's a funny car body, alcohol, Big Show Nitro, Nostalgia Nitro, whatever you want to bring, run it.
And you're not, you know, you're not constantly trying. Of course, you want to go as fast as you can, but you're not constantly pushing the envelope, blowing stuff up to try and. Well, at least I hope we're not going to do that. To try and go faster, you know, you're limited in terms of everybody understands this is not NHRA or IHRA, and you want to be competitive, but you're not going to, you know, blow your budget at the same time you're blowing the car up. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think racing with Tim is equally as going to be, because I think he looks at it kind of the same way as what we're talking about.
Now, have you ever done 8th mile racing?
I did. I have in the last couple of years. I had, you know, I stepped out of it and had to go back and actually earn a living doing other things, and had not been in a car for 15, 16 years. And someone called me and asked me if I wanted to drive a fuel altered, and I wanted to get brushed up on it. I mean, after that long, you go, well, maybe I won't want to do it. Maybe, you know, you have a lot of self-doubt about it. So I went down to Holly School again for a day and licensed down there, and I was glad I did. It was, you know, he's a wealth of information, and I had been to his school initially, so we kind of had a relationship going, and it was good to see him again, to get back in one of the cars, and to know that I didn't have to worry about the car at all. All I had to do was just worry about driving it. So when I got through that, I had my nostalgia funny car license, and so I tested a little bit of a nostalgia car for a fellow that had broken his arm, and then I've been in a fuel altered and a BB altered, and I got to say the fuel altered, those are wild rides. I have a lot of respect for those guys. I always did, because I've seen them in a lot of races. But I got to say, those are, on a real good day, are a handful. And on a bad day, you really better hold on. So that was fun. It was nothing, you know, it was popping in and out of seats, but it gave me a lot of good experience. It got me back to being at the track and getting used to all the stuff, speed and all that.
So with the fuel altered, you did some 8th mile track racing?
Yeah, we just made 8th mile just seems like it's it's over a little too quick. I wonder that too about, since they backed everybody off into the 1,000-mile marker or 1,000-foot marker with the NHRA. It just seems like it's over quick. I don't. For me, it's all about the speed and the ride, and so anything that makes that go a little bit longer makes me happier. And the 8th mile definitely cuts that in two. But yeah, I'm a kind of person who will race, an 8th mile, a quarter mile. I don't care. It's that part of it's immaterial to me. Just put me in the car. Just send me in, coach.
So now, Paula, after all these years, what keeps you passionate about drag racing?
It's interesting you'd ask that because I think when some of the material I sent you, I talked about writing a book, and one of the things that the book's predominantly about women race car drivers, but one of the chapters in there talks about why all of us do it, not just women, but why men and women do this, especially after you've been hurt, because most of us, if you're in it for very long, something probably is going to happen with you. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. And it really defies logic. We just think about it. I mean, I had second-degree burns when I got hurt. And, everybody just assumed I'd stop. And I never skipped a beat. It was like, okay, how long does it take me to, how long is it going to take me to get healed again so that I can get back in the car and we can get back on track financially with another car? It's an addiction. And nowadays, I've actually looked into it for the book, and there's a lot of research that says that, indeed, there's something going on in people who do this. In our brains, it's a little bit different. They've been able to do MRIs and some interesting scientific research that says we really are different. It is in our brain, which my family always suspected that they attributed it to falling off too many horses or hitting the dashboard too many times or something. Head injury. But it really isn't. We're just wired a little bit different. So we will always have that in our blood. And I've been talking to some of the women racers from quite a while ago, and it never does get better. And I think that's the reason why you have to find other ways to deal with that, because it's always there. It's there when you have been, and Tim and I were talking about this as well, when you have been on the line, when fuel cars leave, what other experience is going to match that? I mean, the explosion and the fire and all the stuff that goes with it. There's nothing that matches that. So I don't think I'll ever lose the passion for it. There will be a time when I cannot crawl in and out of them. I know that. Because they're, funny, getting into a funny car is a bit of a challenge. But I don't think I'll ever lose that. I never lost it all the years that I didn't do it. I always was, it was kind of like a restlessness, I guess. And I did other things, but nothing that was that good. Nope. An addiction is an addiction.
Yeah. Got that need for speed.
You do, and apparently you're born with it. You don't. It's not a. You can choose to go that direction, or you can take some other direction. It's not just race car drivers, but it's other people who take. It's downhill skiers that go really, really fast. It's. I was a water speed skier. Those people, I would say, would qualify for a little bit of difference in brain chemistry. And it's interesting because it's not so much, and in talking to more racers for the book, I found that it's not so much that you don't feel fear, because you do, but you just sort of put it to the side and go, but I know how much fun it's going to be, so I don't care if it's kind of scary. It's the same thrill people have when they go on big roller coasters. I'm afraid to, look, they're going upside down they're doing all those loops upside down. I think it's that same kind of feeling that you get that, it's scary, but look, I did it. And you build on that, so it's easy to eventually go from, 100 miles an hour in a boat to 150 to 200 miles an hour in a race car to 280, 290. And go, oh, that was fun. Let's do that again. It's a sickness.
Yeah.
A good one.
So, Paula, now that the days of sexism are long gone, thanks to some of the great female drivers, and from the past and current female drivers. But I was going to ask you, what advice can you give a young female driver of the future that might feel intimidated still?
Well, if they're intimidated by men drivers, so I guess I would say that there really isn't any difference. Car doesn't know whether you're a man or a woman when you crawl in it. It really doesn't. It doesn't ask you. It doesn't care. It'll treat you the same. I think the more you do it, the more confident you get. And I think you listen to what people have to say to you about tracks and about this and about that. I tried not to listen to a lot of the war stories. I listened to people give me constructive criticism, and I gotta say, I ran with Johnny West that first year, and Johnny was not easy to run with. He was a crew chief, not unlike all good crew chiefs, in that he had some attitude, and the attitude was you don't make mistakes. And he didn't, and the expectation would be that I wouldn't. So you got to have your head screwed on straight, and it has to be, you got to be in the moment and really work on focus. You really do. And if the adage is that you can be a great driver and never win, and the reason has to do with the cost. It really does. But if you like it, do it at some, everybody should do it at some level if they really want to do it. And it doesn't matter what that level is. Just because you're not crawling in a fuel car doesn't mean it doesn't have value and worth, and that it won't help your experience level. Cars can be very intimidating, and they can be, racing a car can be intimidating. I remember going to Indy, and everybody kept telling me, "Oh, Indy's a lot of fun. It's the greatest," and it is. It's the biggest show on earth. But when you're sitting there on Sunday next to Ed McCullough, and there's I don't know how many thousands of people in the stands and TVs going, and you have to say to yourself, I'll do the best I can and let it rip. I did not find Indy to be as much fun as I thought it would be. It could have been because it was, Indy's a war. It's a drag racing war. And to call it anything less than that would be superfluous to the issue. It was an awesome experience the times I was there, but it is a war. And so I think being good at what you do always adds to a personal experience in your life. And so regardless of whether you end up progressing in drag racing or something else, there's a value in all the things that you learn when you're driving a car. The focus, the intensity, all of the things that are part of that. We're talking to people. A lot of what drivers do nowadays, kiss babies and hug people because they're sponsored and that's their responsibility. So that was kind of a roundabout answer because I think it has so many components that hopefully that kind of hits the spot somewhere. So it's not an easy thing. Getting those sponsors is horrendous. It really is. And being noticed so that you get a driving job is tough. For one of the big teams, it's huge.
So now, what fuel drivers were your biggest inspirations back when you started out drag racing? There weren't a lot. Shirley was around. I did not know Shirley until later. She and I ended up being booked at some, if you will, they were called Battle of the Sexes back then. She would be the dragster, and I would be the funny car. But I really didn't get to know Shirley that well. The first person that I ever talked to was Della Woods, and it was out at the Fall Nationals, and she had hit the wall. I think
think right after she launched, something happened. Car did a hard move to the left. I think she was in the right lane, and she had been doing very well that year and was on track, to finish in a real good position, and that really messed her up in terms of points. And so I went by her trailer. She was very, considering the kind of weekend she had, especially, she was very cordial, very nice, very encouraging. And she was the one that actually said, if you want to do this, do it. The way we started, if you've not been in a car before, go down to Frank Holly's. And actually, she said, I believe, that even if you have been in a car, go to Frank Holly's. Because Frank talks, it's not just about the mechanics of, when you're backing up, you do this. When you're going forward, you do it. He gets into your head a little bit about what you need to be prepared for and, how to get the eye of the tiger and all that good racing kinds of stuff. So I would say Della. And now that I've talked to a number of other women and or their families that started women getting into drag racing, I probably could say more, but I didn't even know about them. That's the reason why I was doing the book. But there are so many, Paula Murphy certainly had an amazing life and was an amazing racer in a number of things. So I would probably say those two.
Okay, now, what was the experience like for you to get behind the wheel of a Nitro car for the first time?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
What was the experience like for you to get behind the wheel of a Nitro car for the first time?
I was so happy to be in the car. I'm sure I was a little afraid. When that thing lights up in the pits on jack stands when you're warming it, I had a sense of, oh my gosh, what I've got myself into. And I not infrequently would think that when I was in the staging lanes, even after I had a lot of experience when I was sitting in the car, my God, why am I doing this? Because really, you're in front of God and everybody, and you live and die on a thousandth of a second. And you can look really dumb, or you can be the legend of the day based on what you do, and it really is in less than a blink of an eye. And so, you have to have an appreciation for that, I think. As far as, there were times when I felt like the car wasn't right, especially as the years went by. And one season especially, I had I had a challenging crew chief, and I had a number of fires that year. And I knew the car wasn't right. And right as I was getting ready to make my pass, it was the last qualifying pass. My sponsor, I'm strapped in the car, my sponsor leans in and goes, I really need the car qualified because I have some important clients coming on Sunday. And so there was that moment of, uh-oh. Because usually in a fuel car, you can feel it start to go away. And so you get out of it so that you don't blow it up. And what I knew then was to run it out the back door probably would cause it to blow up. And so I made the decision that I knew he would pay for it if I did that. And so that's exactly what happened. I think I was in Ohio, and I felt it nose over at about three-quarter track. But I knew I was on a qualifying pass, so I went ahead and left my foot in it. And through the lights, it lit up. And we did about, the car was qualified, but, it cost about $50,000 to fix it. But he wrote a check out on Sunday to do that. So, I think fear of failure is worse than fear of the car. I think that's anybody who competes. Fear of failure is worse than the worst thing that what you're doing can do to you. At least it was for me.
So the first time you went in the funny car and they put the body down on you, you had no nervousness when the body came down to you?
When I was at Holly School, he takes it really slow, where you get in the car on jack stands to make sure that you can control the car because you're always in gear, and it's really easy to run over people that way. The first time I got in the car, I felt, and I got really strapped in, even without the body, I felt a little claustrophobic. But by the time I got in the car at the starting line and the body came down, I actually started to feel comfortable. And every pass after that, I got the belts tighter and felt better. I felt safer the tighter it was. And that's contrary to what probably most people's brains would say to you. But, one of the things that you're taught is that seatbelts will stretch 4 inches on any kind of impact, which if you don't have those things so tight that you can't breathe and you hit a wall, you're going to be out of the roll cage. Your body will be out of the roll cage, which is a very bad place to be in an accident. So I kind of like it. And frankly, with the Alters, and I've never driven a dragster, but with the Alters, I didn't really like being outside of my little space. I liked the office area I was in with the funny car. So it made me feel more secure. But a lot of people do struggle with claustrophobia. You cannot, by the time you get all the fire equipment, the suit on, the gloves, the double layers of everything. And now we've got the Hans device, so your head won't move. You're tight, you're in there. And if you have any kind of foibles about being in tight places, that funny cars probably shouldn't be your choice. So I liked it. I liked the tightness, the closeness in there. But that was all I got. That was the first car I drove. That was what I was used to. Mm-hmm.
So what's been your quickest estimated time in a Nitro funny car out of all the, the funny cars? What's the fastest you've ever gone in a funny car?
I know I went 300, but it wasn't on purpose. The throttle stuck on the body. But I know it was. I think I'm in the record books at like 280, 88, 285, somewhere like that, and a little over 5 seconds, which was, pretty competitive back in the time that I was running. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see. It would thrill me to be back in a car that ran what they're running now. It might scare me so bad that it won't do it. I don't know. You can't. The weird thing about that speed and the ETs and stuff is that you really can't in the car. Everything's slowed down in the car. So the only way you can tell if you're going faster is that you get there sooner. I mean, that sounds basic, but you have a sense of getting there sooner. But I couldn't tell the difference between, 240, 250, and 280. I got there quicker. That's what I knew. Things happen quicker. But inside the cockpit, time slows down. It's kind of cool. Doesn't mean that you can't be on, you have to be on top of it. You have to react and drive funny cars. But there's no real, that you've gone fast, and I was always, and my crew guys were always on me about this. I did not like to hit both parachutes at the same time because the negative G really dug into your shoulders. That was, doing that was a pretty violent kind of way to stop. Good way to stop, but it also had. So they were always on me because I would put one out and then the other. Nowadays you can't do that. And eventually, by the end of the time I was doing it, they made you tie the two together. So they were hitting all the time. That was smart. But and you would get a sense of how fast you were going then. Or if the car let loose and you were, say, 3/4 track, you would know because your head would go forward. But fast is fast.
Yeah.
I'm just full of really basic kinds of statements like that. But true. I mean, it's a simple thing. Which is not to say that driving a funny car is a simple thing, but speed is a simple thing.
Right. So now with the car you're currently driving for Tim Jones, how many crew members are you gonna have for that car?
We're gonna probably go in lean. I don't know. I may end up having to do some of the wrenching on it. I don't know. We're gonna see. My guess is probably 5. For the type of racing that we're going to be doing, I think that would be good. We're not, you only need to, and frankly, I look at the numbers that they have on the starting lines now for those teams. Like typical, they'll have 10 on the starting line. And geez, that's a lot of people. So I'm hoping that we'll run fairly leaning with 5. Hey, the more people you have, the more personalities you have getting into the mix. And again, I think it's a simple thing. We should not be having to work on this car like you have to at NHRA events. There we were always, you drop the oil frequently, you take an engine out, put another engine in. At least you're doing, new blowers, new rings, new pistons, and all that stuff. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to run this thing in a standard way. That's going to be, if you run in 560s, 570s, you should be able to. It should be pretty bulletproof, unless there's a mechanical failure. You're not really pushing an envelope.
Yeah, and then with the Funny Car Chaos events, the 8th mile is supposed to be, it saves on some of the wear and tear on the car, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're just warming up at 8th mile. At 8th mile, you're probably at over 200 miles an hour, and you've used up a little bit of clutch. But in terms of your blower and crank and stuff like that you won't probably see any wear and tear on for an 8th track. I know on the Altered we didn't. So, I mean, they're just, even with the blower and the spontaneous horsepower that you have, you're not going to tear up too much on an 8th mile. You got to work at it to tear it up in an 8th mile. Or if there's a mechanical failure, I mean, that happens. It's always human.
Yeah. So how many sponsors does Tim currently have for that car?
Well, he's got some great product sponsors right now. Cavalieri Racing, Kevin Taylor Enterprises. There's a number of probably 5 product sponsors, and I've been working on some others. We're trying to get some just basic product sponsors because until you get out there, it's hard to get cash from people. And we're fighting this a little bit because there's limited television and radio time. So he's got the 5 good ones now: Duty Double Shot, Art on Wheels, Charlotte Signs. Those folks have been really good about helping get the car repainted, polished. A lot of the stuff, just general stuff done on the car. So Mike Cavalieri's going to send us talk to him about crew chiefing it. We're hoping for that. And we're going a simple route here. It's just not rocket science. So we're hoping that we can go simple, go lean. And certainly those sponsors have helped a lot. Tim's been the major sponsor on it. It's Tim's cash that's getting it there, but these other folks always. Those folks help you so much because if you were paying for all the stuff that they do, the graphics, paint, that sort of thing, then it takes money from the car parts that you want to buy or the computer you want to buy or whatever else. So those are always very much appreciated. Hopefully, by the time we get going, we'll have spark plug and oil sponsor. I think that's going to work. And we'll go from there. Hopefully upward, but more.
Yeah, I know he just got some new graphics put on that car, the crippled dog.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind the crippled dog?
Beth runs. She's like the Humane Society for their area, as best I could tell. He is an animal person, And so I think every dog that doesn't have a home ends up somewhere on their property with her. She's very much an animal activist, and she and I have a lot in common with that because I'm a big proponent of taking care of animals, and I've been involved with horses all my life and continue to be. And so, yeah, that's her kind of a foundation nonprofit sort of thing that she does. And I'm sure Tim's going, yeah, it certainly is a nonprofit because she just has a very soft heart when it comes to animals, and she takes the giveaways. So, kind-hearted lady. So it deserves to have a spot on the car as well.
Yeah, Tim sent me some pictures. Well, he put them on the event page for the interview. The new pictures of the car with the big crippled dog on there.
Yeah. There's always more animals than there are people to take care of them. I recently, when I moved back to Phoenix, got involved with the Clydesdale Foundation, and so I helped take care of 6 Clydesdales with that. And it's, you know, the thing with animals, you give them they ask for so little, and you give them just that much, and they give you back a lot more. And a lot of the time, you know, the good thing is they can't talk back, so you can run anything on them, and they don't care, and they won't tell anybody. I don't think. So I think she's just a very good person about taking in animals, and so they wanted to make sure that made it to the car. It's important.
Right. Now, for you, when you got a weekend of racing coming up, how do you prepare for a weekend of drag racing?
I think the first race is at Amarillo. Normally I fly in. I'll probably drive over there just because I can stop along the way and visit some friends. It's really important to work out. It really is, and the more seasoned I become, the more I think I have to work out. So my workouts now going into the season, I'll speed up in terms of intensity and what I need to do to get ready. Most of the stuff, you know, most of the things that will get done by Tim and the group back there. I'm in an interesting position. Before I had to worry about, you know, is the semi painted, is the or clean and tires and all that stuff. I don't have that worry this time. So my stuff is really simple. I throw all my safety equipment in a bag and my fire suit, and away I go. But it's a longer prep. It's more prep than that. It really has to do with getting your head screwed on straight. And I like to just, I almost become a different person on a race weekend because I like to think I'm still, friendly and conversational, but I really try to close off a lot of noise and I always get in the car early. I was talking to Carol Henson about that. She did it as well because I don't like to have a lot of conversations. I like to focus on the past before I make it. And the easiest way to do that is to get in the car because then nobody can talk to you. I used to watch a lot of the guys go up and they would watch, if they were further back in the line, they'd watch funny cars run so that they could, look at the track and stuff. I did that one time in my life, and I decided I never was going to do it again because I stood there and I watched them run, and I thought, oh my God, that's just too fast. I'm not going to run that fast, no. And indeed, I was running as fast as they were. But it was so weird being on the outside watching funny cars at that point in my career and thinking, oh my gosh, I got to beat them. And so I would watch dragsters, but I never again went up the starting line and watched funny cars ever. It just was screwed in my head. So most of mine is done starting months out from when I race. And it's part of just my own way of looking at things. I think it's really important to stay in shape and keep your heart good. You know, they've done a lot of studies on how high your heart rate gets and when you're racing, and all that stuff comes into play.